Welcome to the latest Pets Mag podcast. Today we're joined by Collette Jacobs from Hounds and Harmony in Coventry, who's pioneering a fascinating and rather unusual field in canine kinesiology. And I'm sure you're going to correct me in how I've just said that because I know it's not spot on. Colette, can you start by telling us a little bit about what the K word actually means?
Yes, certainly. Kinesiology, which is also known as muscle testing and biofeedback, is a fusion of different techniques that were brought together by a chiropractor called Dr. Goodhart back in the 60s. And in its simplest form, it's the study of movement. So by looking at the way different muscles react when we place them under stress, we can identify the root cause and clear any energy blocks that are preventing the body from returning to homeostasis. And what we kind of do, or kinesiology does, is it bypasses the conscious mind, if you like, and talks to the body.
That's absolutely fascinating. Can you tell us how you discovered this?
Yeah, of course. So it's a little bit of a story, but I suffered with migraines in my late teens, which were very debilitating, affecting my work, social life, relationships. And I'd seen various doctors, consultants, physios, massage therapists, you name it, I'd seen them, but nothing helped me. And they continued to plague me for the next 30 odd years. And then after having my son, who's now 14, my migraines changed and they became more frequent and more intense. And I was literally having about three migraines a month, each lasting for 3 days, which rendered me useless and in bed. At the time, I was a single mum and I just started to run my own business. And there were times when my boy didn't even go to school because I wasn't able to get out of bed and I had to get friends come and help and had to cancel business clients. It was awful.
Must have been appalling. Yeah.
It was just terrible, yeah. And I also had this constant sort of heaviness on my shoulders, and it felt like I was almost carrying like sandbags around. It was awful.
Mm.
And I kind of stumbled on kinesiology when just scrolling one day as you do. And I had a chat with this lady and she convinced me to give it a go. And I turned up at her house. I lay on a treatment couch and she picked up my arms, my legs, and she asked me to push against her while she was testing. And she was testing the strength of the muscles. And there was times when I could meet her pressure, and there was other times when I couldn't. I'd like got zero strength, which would just amaze me. And then she gently sort of touched various points of my body, and sometimes she just wafted her hand over my body. And after about an hour, she said, "You're done. I'll see you in a month." And I left that session feeling quite skeptical, thinking she's not really done anything. It's not like when you go for a massage and you feel it.
It sounds
So,
it sounds
sorry,
quite
go on.
similar to Reiki. How does it differ to Reiki? Is it because Reiki
Um,
is
well,
stripped
Reiki
down as
tends to
well?
be, yeah, sorry, what Reiki
Software.
tends to be sort of
Mm.
above the body, doesn't it? And you kind of move in energy, which is a very similarity.
Mhm.
But kinesiology is more hands-on than that. You use neurovascular points, for example, and as I said, it's muscle testing to find out
Mhm.
what's going on in the body and where it holds that stress. So
Mhm.
when I went and had this treatment, I left her session, as I said, quite skeptical, and I was literally waiting for the next migraine to come. And it never ever did. And I've been migraine free now for 6 years, which again just blows my mind. And that heaviness that I felt on my shoulders completely
That's
went.
completely amazing. It really is. I mean, it must
Absolutely.
kind of work with the body's energy. So just applying that to dogs, what led you to adapt it to dogs? Were you working as a dog trainer at the time and you just
Yeah, so I'm
followed
actually a
the
canine
advice?
behaviourist,
Mhm.
and I developed a behaviour change program where I help owners understand the why behind the dog's unwanted behaviour and how they change that. And it all starts with the owner. Now, if you think about the connection that owners have with their dogs, it's very deep, and people will say it's as deep as the bond you have with child. And what happens is your energies become entwined, affecting you both on an emotional, behavior, and physical level. And I'd see.
I must be feeling pretty relaxed then at the moment with the doggies in the background snoozing.
Awesome.
Chilled out.
And one of the things I'd noticed when I was working with clients is that if they've called me out because their dog's anxious, for example, the owner was anxious. And if they called me out because they've got an aggressive dog, the owner would tend to be one of these people that would fly off the handle really, really easily. Not always the case, but the majority of the case. So they shared the same, emotions and behaviors.
Mhm.
And during the kinesiology course, because I then went on to do a qualification in kinesiology, and during that course, she spoke about how you can use a surrogate to work on someone that isn't able to be tested. So maybe somebody with mobility issues, etc. And I immediately thought, dogs, I could do this on
Mm.
dogs and use the owner as a surrogate.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I wanted to incorporate the kinesiology into my behaviour program so we could essentially find out what the dog is feeling when it all started for the dog and what it needs to be able to move forward, as well as sort of bringing to the owner's attention their shared emotions and
Okay.
similarities that they share between them.
Honestly, that's fascinating. If I could just use one of my dogs as a
Yeah,
case study. So you can see her, she's a bit blurred. She's the far dog. She's a Ruby Cavalier. Only
yeah.
had her since early January this year, and she's a rescue dog. She bless her,
Mhm.
she spent 5 years on a puppy farm being used for breeding.
Yeah,
And she is a darling in the house. She was initially anxious and untrusting, but she's absolutely wonderful now. But she's reactive
mhm.
to any animals. She
Yeah,
dogs, even particularly men that are walking towards us, barks her head off. So, I've started to use, certain techniques, saying enough, for instance. Um, her energy is obviously not the same as the other two dogs who I've had since they were puppies, and they're, very well adjusted, to use human speak. Um, and yeah, could she, I mean, say if I brought her along to you now, if we were
mhm.
physically present with you now, how would a typical session with her name is Phoebe, how would it present itself? And what would
Yeah, so it's a really good example about your dog because, and I find this a lot with behavior dogs, sorry, rescue dogs, because rescue dogs, we quite often don't know their history. You know a little bit of her history, but
Mm,
when you think about rescue dogs, they've normally gone through absolute trauma.
mm,
Now, if you think about when we go through trauma, we are able to talk to our friends about it, or if needed, go to a therapist and talk to a therapist. Dogs don't, they
mm,
hold on to it. And if you think about when as I said, something awful happens, you go through some trauma, all those emotions that you feel, as I said, we can offload that, we can process that,
mm,
but dogs don't, they hold on to it. And all they do is then adapt and they change their behavior to deal with whatever that emotion did for them. So, for example, if your dog um, when it had been with the other people, if it had been bitten or attacked by another dog, it then changes its belief system from all is safe, all is good, to actually it's not, I need to protect
mm.
myself. And then she'll be reactive. So, like you've said, she'll be a darling in the home, but then she'll be reactive outside because she's protecting herself from whatever it was that happened to her.
This is really interesting because previous trainers have said it's because she's just so excited to be out in the world, whereas I am not so sure because she could
No.
jump up at me for almost for comfort
Mm,
when she feels particularly threatened. There's a number of
yeah,
dogs around, so she does jump up. So
yeah,
that's what's led me to believe that. So
yeah,
do
absolutely.
you think a dog like Phoebe could benefit from this technique?
Yeah, because what we do, and again, it's absolutely fascinating. So if you were to come, I
Mm,
would put you on my treatment couch. You would bring Phoebe along,
mhm,
and I would connect you to Phoebe. So you'd hold the lead basically,
mhm,
and Phoebe's attached to the end of the lead. And I use kinesiology protocols where you then
mhm,
yeah, sounds a bit odd, but you essentially then I'm reading the energy of Phoebe, but by using you. So
mhm,
kinesiology is about muscle testing. So I would use your arm. So for example, if I sort of show you on myself,
mhm,
I would be, I'd ask you to hold my pressure as I press your arm, and
mhm,
then I use what's called an emotion code.
mhm,
So you then are looking at the ceiling, thinking, well, not thinking about anything, just clearing your mind. And I am going through the emotion code and I'm just touching it. I'm going, is it that one? Is it that one? Is it that one? And I'm just going through
mhm,
words, but I'm referring to Phoebe. And when I hit on the one that is true for Phoebe,
mhm,
you literally lose all strength in your arm because that is the one that has caused the stress for Phoebe. And then I'd say to you, right, for example, that's fear that's come up for her.
mhm.
So now let's find out when that first became a problem for her. And then we go back in ages. So we actually pinpoint when that first became a problem for her because we're getting it out to
So it
clear
could
it.
be, she's estimated to be around 6. It could be,
Yeah,
aged
so we'd go
few
back in
months old.
time to find out when
Mm.
it happened. And it might be,
Be aged
when
three
she was,
months.
yeah,
Mm.
but maybe you don't know what happened to her at that point,
I
but
think,
it's about getting
yeah,
it out.
I think she's had dogs like her have had a horrendous background and being used, kept in, kennel-like
Yeah.
situations forever. So yeah. That's very, very interesting. So just getting back to more generally, we talked about trauma. What kind of other issues are you seeing with clients coming to you?
Yeah. So it can be used on anything, to be honest. So, for example, if you've got a dog, oh, in fact, I'll give you an example. Had a lady came and she'd rescued actually a French Mastiff. And the French Mastiff, like you've just said, had been used for breeding, nothing else, just breeding. And this French Mastiff came and she was closed down. She just was in a terrible state. And she'd got these ear infections, constant ear infections. And her owner had got antibiotics time after time from the vet, and they just kept coming back. So she bought her for a kinesiology session, and we went back in time and looked at the emotions and what she felt. And what the emotion came out was useless, and she felt useless because previously she'd had a purpose, which was breeding,
Mhm,
and now she'd just been abandoned, so she felt useless. And then we did this thing called human mirroring. And this is where we look to see if there's a shared connection with the owner, a shared core woundings, if you like. And
mhm,
there was, because at the time, the owner, she felt useless and she was struggling with her own identity in terms of how is she going to move her business forward. She was a bit lost
mhm,
and they'd almost like found each other and we got all that out and we cleared energy blocks and it absolutely cleared up her ear infections. So it can be used for anything physical, emotional, behavioral. And what I also love about it is you can do sensitivity testing. So again, quite a lot of people will say to me, I think my dog has an allergy to wheat. I've took it to the vet, and the vet said change its food, do this and that.
mhm,
And when we've looked at it, it isn't wheat, and we can go through because we can get the food and we can just pop it on and test straight away, and we find out immediately what's causing that fur to fall out, that scratching, that sickness, those loose stools, whatever it might be. It's absolutely incredible, honestly. I'm bowled over by it day in, day out.
It sounds absolutely fascinating. I mean, in a nutshell, do you think it boils down to working with the body's energy fields? Is that
Yeah, absolutely.
basically?
That's how I'm reading the dog. It could
Mhm.
because it's about the fur and
Um,
again, because I can also do it when somebody doesn't have to bring the dog, and I can just say to them, bring a fur sample, and
mhm,
we'll do it through the fur sample, and
mhm,
that's all about quantum physics and about how two particles, when separated, they still act as one.
mhm,
So the owner doesn't actually have to be present, if they don't want to for whatever reason. But I prefer it because I like to be able to talk through what's coming up there and then for the owners.
okay, that's interesting. So it gets me onto to my another question. Is it really something that can be done remotely, or do you have to be there in person?
You don't have to be there in person. I mean, kinesiology in Australia is huge. It's getting more popular here, but in Australia, it's huge, and they do a lot of animal kinesiology in Australia. And there's people over there that will do it by a photograph. So you just email them your photograph of the dog, and they do the reading from that.
Mhm,
I
mhm,
personally like the personal touch, so I'm quite happy to do if they send me something, I've got the fur of the dog.
mhm,
But as I said, if the owner's in the room, I do prefer that because I can talk through the issues with the owner. And it's
mhm,
great when something comes up and we say, oh, at 2 years, 3 months, this is what the dog felt. And when the owners think about it and they go, oh, that was when the dog was attacked, or that was when the other dog died, or
mhm.
whatever it might be, and you get that, wonderful.
So can you do it with multiple dogs, not just one dog? Does that entail a separate session?
I wouldn't do like multiple dogs at the same time, and because obviously the energies would all get sort of entwined, so it would have to be each dog individually. And another thing as well, and I made this mistake when I first started, was that I went on for too long in terms of things would come up and I'd keep going and going, and then it all gets a little bit awry. And
Mhm,
it's because, again, you've gone on too long and you become fatigued. It's got to be, sort of around about an hour of the testing when you're doing it. So I would only
mhm.
do sort of, yeah, one dog.
And finally, just asking for a friend, do you travel to to see people and their dogs or?
Um, generally not, only because I have a treatment couch in my treatment room, and the person, I mean, they don't need to lie down, they can sit, but I've got all my books and everything here that I can sort of go through.
Mhm,
I mean, it depends how far. I mean, I do travel for my behaviour
mhm.
program to deliver that, so it depends how far the travel would be.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Colette.
My
It's been
pleasure.
really fascinating. It's an area that I didn't understand before speaking to you. So we'll definitely be looking into that on a personal.
Awesome.